Welcome to the podcast. It's Monday, August 14th. Holy shoot. It's like halfway through August. Feels like it's halfway through summer, which I guess it is. And here I am doing a podcast on Monday night. Thanks for being with me. If you are, if you're not, well, screw you. If you're catching this after the fact, I guess I should just shoot them. I should just shoot these things non-live so I can just plan my life and then not shoot them live. But I do this for you. So if you do want to join and you want to get in on the chat, you can. You can talk to me direct, and I will respond because I'm constantly looking down here. Uh, so yeah. So if you do want to chat, please do because I will talk to you. And I'm lonely, so talk to me, please. Got a lot to talk about today. Gonna start with um, I'm gonna start with a dumpster fire of a person. I dislike her, but Megan Rapinoe, she's if you know it all, she's a female soccer player for the U.S. team. I mean, she's retired now, I guess. Gizzo, there's Gizzo. How you doing, buddy? Um, she's uh, she's done now, thank God. But if you're one of the 14 or 15 people that watch women's soccer, then you'll know who she is. But we're gonna just talk about her and some of her baloney and her political sort of views and that kind of shit. We'll talk about the UFC. So I don't know if anybody's aware of this, but the UFC's been in process of being sued. Obviously, they're a large company, so they get sued all the time, I'm sure. But there's a class action lawsuit that's been going on now for God, like I think 2014 they started or something like that. Some names you've heard of, like Nate Quarry and I forget some of the other guys, but they started it. Guys that were like good fighters, but maybe not the best fighters, so they probably weren't happy with their pay. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Neil deGrasse Tyson. If you caught anything about him in the last little while, he is he's basically a shill now. He used to be a scientist. I don't think he is that anymore. I think now he's just an entertainer. He's kind of like a Bill Nye, I guess. And he's gone on a little rant lately about gender politics and all this bullshit stuff that scientists should just stay clear of. But he's decided to get in there, so we'll talk about that. Um, Patrick Bet David. By now, you probably know who he is because he's getting quite popular. He's got a podcast, the PBD podcast. It's now top 10 on Spotify. So we'll talk about that as well, and why his podcast maybe is doing so well. Maybe I'll take some tips and try and make my podcast as good. Well, we'll see. Um, Also, Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, VP, she has been useless, beyond useless. But for some reason now the media has decided they want to try and gaslight us and tell us how good of a job she's doing and all this. So, I don't know, what is this? Is this some kind of like move to maybe get Biden out of there and have her take over? Maybe they think she can do better. I don't know what it is, but it's weird. So we'll talk about that. And then the last, I like to end on something kind of funny and stupid. We're going to talk about pronouns. Xeno pronouns. If you haven't heard of these, don't worry about it. I hadn't either. I just happened to see a video about somebody uh, explaining what they are. Probably one of the more ridiculous things that you're going to hear of. But we'll talk about that and we'll get a good laugh about that. So, uh, as always, I would say if you're watching or if you're catching this later, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, like the videos. You can catch any segment of what I talk about on the podcast over the week in smaller clips. So if you miss the podcast and you want to catch something, look for those. I drop those at 5 o'clock every day, and obviously the podcast is 7 o'clock on Mondays. So I'd be glad if you join me. Like my man Gizzo over here, who's a regular watcher, and I appreciate you jumping in the chat. So yeah, let's just get started. I guess I got nothing better to do, I suppose. Let's move. Okay, so let's talk about this here. This Megan Rapinoe. Um, Again, she's a soccer star, I guess. I don't know. She's on the female team, which good on her. She's I think she's non-binary. I don't know what she is. She's something. She's in the alphabet group, so um you might have heard of her lately if you hadn't heard of her, because she just missed a pretty crucial kick to knock the U.S. women's team out of the World Cup. That was about a week ago. But she's another one of these like Colin Kaepernick type where she's protesting the national anthem, and she's an athlete that's got to keep herself relevant somehow by throwing herself into identity politics and all this kind of shit. Uh, okay, good on you, I guess. If it gets some relevance over to the women's soccer team, all right. But it just draws negativity. I'm going to read this article, part of it, because I don't think I want to read much of it. It's from the Daily Mail, so take it with a grain of salt. So Megan Rapinoe slammed by USA fans for laughing after missing a crucial penalty in the World Cup shootout against Sweden before crying on the field as her team are knocked out. So if you've seen this video, she laughs immediately. I'm not going to disparage her for that, because people kind of react in weird ways when when something embarrassing happens to them. Some people laugh, some people cry, some people they hide, they don't say it. There's all different reactions, right? So this could be just her. That who knows. Um, Not the best look for her, but I'll read this little bit here. It says, angry USA soccer fans rounded on Megan Rapinoe for laughing as she missed a crucial penalty in the World Cup penalty shootout against Sweden, which eventually lost. The U.S. team lost to be knocked out of the tournament. It meant that Rapinoe, 38, has played her last World Cup game for the USA. Oh, that's the best news right there. So maybe she just goes away kind of quietly. She was crying on the field with her devastated teammates in Melbourne after Sweden won, but it was her immediate reaction to uh, her own penalty miss that left many fans with little sympathy. So she took USA's fourth penalty in the shootout to give her team a 4-2 lead in the shootout and blazed her shot high over the crossbar. But as she jogged back to the halfway line, she was much to the confusion of fans watching back home, smirking and laughing to herself. So then I guess, so you can see she's kind of like smiling here. Then she's laughing with her teammates, and then she's crying. Yeah, that seems normal. This kind of seems like I would say for someone like her, this is kind of probably within the wheelhouse of her plethora of emotions that she goes through every couple minutes in the day. So I wouldn't I wouldn't think this is anything out of the normal. Um, like yeah, I feel bad on a human level, I guess, that she missed it. I mean, that sucks. It's a pretty big stage to miss like that. But I feel like somebody like this has kind of brought this on herself or their self. I don't know what they identify as. Blue hair. I feel like blue hair brought this on herself. Um, it's the whole disparaging the country that backs you. Saying anything negative, especially when you're in sports, you're an athlete, when you're talking smack about your own country. It's just, I'm so sick of this shit. You know, especially when you're an athlete, and the whole idea, especially in this game, the whole idea is national pride. People are only watching this soccer game. Anybody more than 14 people are watching this soccer game because it's the USA playing Sweden, and they're like national pride. It doesn't have anything to do with that. My guess is that they're real staunch female soccer fans. When you've got the men playing that much better. Sorry, feminists. I'm sorry to say that, but the men are better. And nobody really wants to watch the female game, which is another thing that she was preaching about, equal pay and all this. Equal pay for equal work. How about that? If you draw in a big crowd and it's generating a lot of income, then cool, then they should pay you. But I don't think female soccer is generating that much income. So you know what? After all this, at least she's retiring. So I will say I bid farewell to Miss Rapinoe and all your stupid woke ideology. Okay, let's get past this. I wanted to get through that story quick because I wanted to talk about it, but I missed it last week. It was it was right at when I did the podcast, so I would have talked about it, but try and stay relevant with current shit. People seem to like that. Grows the channel, so it's not something I wanted to talk about. So I apologize if you watched that and you went because I was the whole time I was doing it. Okay, so let's go to the next story here. Okay, so the UFC. This one's bad. This is a big lawsuit. This one's been going on for a little while. Like I said, this one started, I think, back in 2014. This was a number of fighters. I think it was six to start. But it's listing as many as 1,200 fighters may now be involved because there's a time period of when this takes place. This class action lawsuit. I'm going to read it so it'll give the information rather than spew out the information that I think I know, and I probably do know. It'd just be easier for me to go ahead and read it. So here we go. So this is from Sportskeeda. I've caught articles from these guys before, and they're okay. I don't know. It's not bad. The information's pretty good and comparative to other articles anyway. So breaking UFC antitrust lawsuit certified as class action after damning federal court verdict. 1,200 fighters now involved. So the UFC is reportedly being sued by over 1,200 fighters for allegedly using illegal business practices. So that's misleading. They're not being sued by over 1,200 fighters. There are 1,200 fighters that could be a part of this lawsuit. It started with six. It's probably grown since then. I don't know how many are in there now, and I'm sure when they see the dollar amount that could be involved in this settlement, or I mean this lawsuit, and probably subsequent settlement. Let's be real. The UFC is probably not going to go to court. They'll just settle over this. I'm sure a bunch of these, sort of no-name fighters, people maybe you've heard of or whatever, or maybe they've been on undercards or something, never really did much. They're going to jump in this because of that time period I said. So over the past few years, the Ultimate Fighting Championship has acquired mainstream attention through their partnership with ESPN. The added viewership has led to backlash from some fans who believe the fighters aren't paid properly. That's kind of a misnomer, but anyways. According to Eric Magrican, a combat sports regulatory lawyer, a group of fighters started a class action lawsuit against the worldwide leader in MMA nearly 10 years ago. The legal action was certified today. Now, this is dated back a few days, August 9th. Explained the situation on Twitter by saying, in a nutshell, a bunch of fighters sued the UFC saying they used illegal techniques to acquire dominance in the market, and they abused that dominance in the market, and the effect has been to underpay fighters drastically over the years. So the fighters associated with the lawsuit were not revealed, but there are reportedly at least 1,200 involved. Again, they're saying that. That's not 100% true. That just means that there could be that many. It's like when they do these class action lawsuits and they reach out to someone and they go, were you affected by X? And so not everybody gets into the class action lawsuit. They actually have to opt in or they can opt out, either way. But they have to opt in. They're not just opted in on their own. But there are reports. Okay, so the exact timeline has been confirmed for what's next in the legal action. So here we go. In order to get certification for the class action lawsuit, a group of fighters suing the Ultimate Fighting Championship would need substantial evidence. After 10 years of advocating, the union has convinced the court that the next step should be taken. So these are really damning reasons the court released today. They found a preponderance of evidence that the UFC has used ruthless and coercive practices. In a nutshell, there's three things the court said. So here we go. Number one, they used oppressive contracts. Number two, that they use ruthless tactics outside of their oppressive contracts and combine those with two things: keep fighters from really ever enjoying free agency. Okay. And three, the court found that the UFC has has bought up competition, not to necessarily make their product better, but instead to give fighters fewer choices on the open market. I would kind of agree with that last one. I think that last one, they probably did that a lot at the start. And one could make arguments that they were breaking anti-monopoly rules, or even there's another one, I forget what it's called, like monopsony or something like that. It's a market term or something. I think it refers to it maybe in this article, but no, probably not. Looks like this article's over. Okay. So anyways, to sum that sort of up, right now this lawsuit had been going on for a while, and they were essentially appealing. UFC was appealing this. So it was getting kicked. The can was getting kicked down the road for the last bunch of years. But now a judge has actually said, no, we're actually going to see this. We're going to see this as an actual litigation. So it's moved to the next stage essentially. So, and from what I've read, it looks like it could be anywhere as far as the lawsuit could. I think it's kind of in flux right now. I think they're kind of figuring out the number, what they're going to be suing for. I don't know where they come up with the number, but somewhere between 800 million and like 1.6 billion. And it could be higher depending, I guess, on the amount of people that opt in on the class action lawsuit. I don't know how this works exactly. I don't know why the big range, but that seems to be the range anyway. So, like I said, I think this is probably going to be one of those things where Dana White and the UFC will settle. And I mean, it's not good either way. If they have to settle, it sets kind of a, it opens a door, I guess, to other fighters doing this. But I think before they settle, I think they're going to shore up anything. Well, like I said, this lawsuit, it's between the timeline of 2007 or 2010 and 2017. So it has a window. Now, I don't know if maybe they shored up things because they were being sued from 2014. So now any other class action lawsuits wouldn't sort of hold the same weight. I don't know exactly. I'd have to do a little more deep diving on that. But that's where we're at right now with this. So uh, this is like the first sort of chink in the UFC armor. They've been pretty good at keeping a pretty tight business, and amid all the sort of idea that they're underpaying fighters. Now, maybe they're underpaying certain fighters, but I don't think they're underpaying all fighters. I think some of the top fighters are pretty happy with their pay. Um, but we'll see how this goes. I think this could be kind of bad for the UFC. All right, so let's move on to the next thing here. My thing's moving slow here. Okay, so I alluded to this already, Mister Mr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's uh I don't know what he's doing lately. It's been he does this podcast with another guy. I don't know if he's a comedian or what. I've caught little glimpses of it, little pieces of it. It's not enough for me to watch. It's like Star Talk, I think, or something like that. I think what's happening here with Neil deGrasse Tyson is he's losing relevance in the scientific community. So he's kind of making a side shift. So the side shift that he's making in this case is into identity politics and gender ideology and that kind of thing. So um, not very sciency, if you will. But I'm going to read this article. This is from Turning Point USA. So if you're watching this podcast, this is you're probably more of a right leaning type of person, or you're moderate like I am. Either way, you're going to find that the information that comes from someone like Turning Point USA, excuse me, on something like this is going to be a lot more favorable. So it's not going to be as, you know, fluffy and hurt your feelings. So I'll read this. Here we go. So Neil deGrasse Tyson claims that chromosomes are insufficient in determining a person's gender. Famous astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson has found himself at the center of social media storm following his comments critiquing the belief that sex and gender are binary. The viral video of deGrasse Tyson's remarks on X, which is formerly Twitter, has ignited a number of activists to accuse him of disregarding basic scientific truths. In the video, deGrasse Tyson challenges the notion that chromosomes exclusively determine a person's gender. So let me see. I think here's the video here. So I'm going to play the video, and you'll see how kind of bad this thing is.
My point is, apparently, the XXXY chromosomes are insufficient because when we wake up in the morning, we exaggerate whatever feature we want to portray the gender of our choice. Either the one you're assigned, the one you
Love the in the background. Like, yeah, that's a real poignant point you made there, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Well done. So smart.
choose to be, whatever it is. And so now here, so now just to tie a bow on this, I say to you, somewhere I think I read that the United States was a land where we have the pursuit of happiness.
Yes.
Suppose no matter my chromosomes, today I feel 80% female, 20% male. I'm gonna put on makeup. I'm gonna do that. Tomorrow I might feel 80% male. I'll remove the makeup and I'll wear a muscle shirt. Why do you care?
Yeah.
What business is it of yours to require that I fulfill your inability to think of gender on a spectrum?
Okay. So much to unpack there. It's so stupid. Like, okay, it's not scientific to say that. So if you're coming from the basis of being a scientist, so this is the problem with him. Instead of stating his opinion and saying, "This is my opinion," I think we should look at gender on a spectrum, and I think that just because you're XX chromosome or XY chromosome, we shouldn't we shouldn't judge you or base you on that. If he wants to say that in that way as a scientist, okay, fine, that's your opinion. It's not based on now. If I were him, I would preface it to say, this is not my scientific opinion. This is not based on science. This is based on societal, you know, changes and cultural changes, that kind of thing. But the fact that he is a scientist and he he exposes himself as a scientist most of the time just makes this it just makes him disingenuous to me completely because it doesn't seem he's not consistent. You know what I mean? He's not consistent in his message. And again, like I said, I don't care. I get what he's saying at the end there, where he's saying, why do you care? Because okay, sure, why would anybody really care? I don't care if if I had a friend who I got a dude friend who decides tomorrow he's wearing a dress and some makeup, I'm gonna make fun of him, because that's what we do. But still gonna be my friend. It's just same difference if suddenly somebody I've known for 20 years or something comes out as gay. I'm still gonna be his friend. Huh. What's he saying here? Okay, so Joe Pessendorfer. So do I have a Twitter account? I do. I don't really use it. Um, he should stick to the stars and leave biology alone. I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. You should. And yeah. So sorry, I didn't see you. I was kind of in the middle of the thing there, but thanks for commenting, Joe. Yeah. Stay with your astrophysicist scientific background. Stay out of that. And if you want to make that comment, I understand everybody has opinions and everybody wants to use their platform to put out their opinions and such. The problem with him is he's so arrogant. When he says it, it's as if we're all stupid. So X chromosome and XY chromosomes don't mean anything now because Neil deGrasse Tyson says so. Okay, I guess I'm an idiot and you're smart because you're a scientist. Well, you know what? That's not really how it works. And I think people are going to really start to see that this guy is kind of a con man at this point now because he's not really a scientist anymore because I don't think he really practices. He has shows. Like I said, he has that Star Talk, and I think he wants to stay relevant. I think he wants to be Bill Nye, the science guy. So if that's what you want to do, Mr. Tyson, you got all our blessing, but we're not going to think of you as a scientist anymore. Yeah. So anyways, I saw that clip not too long ago on one of the podcasts, or I think it might have been Patrick Bet David, oddly enough, which is actually who I'm going to be talking about next. But it's just so silly. And he was on Patrick Bet David's podcast, and again, very arrogant. What an arrogant guy. Too bad too because he's quite intelligent, um, scientifically. He's quite intelligent, but it seems like he's lacking. Um, I don't know. He's lacking something on the intelligence level. I mean, I think sometimes when people are so smart in one thing, they can't broaden their knowledge base on other topics just because maybe their brain's too full of that shit that they can't put anything extra in there. So, all right. So let's just get on to the next thing here. All right. So, Mr. Patrick Bet David, or as people might know him, PBD. If you haven't caught his podcast, he's got a great podcast. It's kind of like it's a panel form. So there's one, two. There's four guys, sometimes five on the podcast. It'll be him, his partner, I think, the valuetainment partner guy. I'm not sure what his name is, who has his own podcast as well. And then uh, there's I can't remember the other guy's name either, but he's kind of a little bit of a loudmouth guy, which I like him. And then he's got a sensible guy at the end, but he always has a guest. And Patrick Bet David, the good thing about him is it's not the same kind of podcast as you get with like a Joe Rogan podcast where it's a one-on-one interview and it's basically Joe just allowing somebody who's an expert in their field or whatever just to talk and say whatever they have to say on whatever topic it is, and then Joe just curiosity asks them questions about that topic and is basically learning. It's like almost like you're watching somebody learn, which is it's great. I love Joe Rogan's podcast, but this one I like this one because he actually does a different thing where it's almost like an interview, but um, he grills them with questions too and such. So he'll get somebody from the opposite side of the aisle, or somebody he doesn't agree with. For example, he had Patrick. He had Andrew Weiner on not too long ago, a couple weeks back or something like that, and that was a pretty chippy podcast. It was funny actually. A guy named Andrew Weiner. I mean, geez, you got to expect you're gonna get some ridicule. But anyway, so he had him on the podcast, and just you could tell he didn't like him right off the bat. I mean, so Weiner's, I don't know specifically what he was charged with and what he was convicted of. I know it had to do with like sending pictures to underage girls of his schlong. So I mean, there's that. So I think okay. So here we go. Let me pop this up. This is actually the part of the podcast I kind of paused at where it was funny where he got a little chippy with Wiener. So here we go.
How is it when you think about other candidates? Okay, everybody has a stereotype. You have a reputation whether you like it or not. What's your reputation? Your reputation is you like to text underage girls and you like to talk to girls and you sex sending pictures of your dangling. That's your reputation. Whatever you do, you can't do anything about it. Adam has a reputation.
Of your dangling. I love that. Uh, yeah. So you could just tell, like, he puts that out there in a way that it's, he's not saying that because he's friendly with him. Like they're going to be friends in any way. He's saying that to insult him, but as mildly as possible, which I think is funny. I've seen him do it with other people, not as bad as with Wiener. With Wiener, he was like, I think he probably had a disdain for this guy just because of the fact that he's a convicted, whatever you want to call him. I don't think he technically did anything with girls. I think it was more like sexting and stuff. So, you know, I know for some people it doesn't matter. It's, pedophile's a pedophile. There are levels though. And this guy, he's on the mild level at the very least. Like, he's in the wrong level, but obviously the mild of what it could be. Anyways, let me get back to sort of PBD here. But that's the endearing thing about his podcast, because he doesn't really hold back. He asks very tough questions. He doesn't really let anybody get out of it. Rogan's good for that too. But he doesn't let anybody squirm out of a question. He'll make them kind of answer the question or just keep on them until they do, or they just don't, and then, anybody watching knows that person's just a loser. They just won't answer the question. But I think that's why, among other things, why he has moved. As you can see, here's the top 10 podcast list, Spotify. And this was as of a few days ago, I think. There he is, number 10. So he's moved up. I remember back when I started watching this podcast, I think he was he might have been in the top 100, somewhere in there, but he's number 10 now. And this shows the downward arrow. I think maybe he was at 9 or something, but that's quite a jump. If you look like comparatively, let's go down and see somebody else here. Look, Jordan Peterson, his podcast, 37. I mean, another great podcast. But the difference with that podcast versus PBD's podcast is PBD's podcast is going to actually it's a little bit more energetic. It's going to keep you kind of engaged a little more because you've got you got more people on the panel. You've got a little bit more discussion going on, a little bit of interjection. I think people kind of like that a little bit too, because if you're just listening to a podcast, like for example, this podcast here, you're just listening to me talk. Either you're interested in what I'm talking about, or you share my opinions, or you don't, and then you just tune out. I think with PBD, it's kind of different. So I think that his podcast could grow. I'm not going to go as far to say he's going to beat Joe Rogan or or take the top spot, but I think he could get up to number 3 or something. I think he could really move up because that podcast is really good, and he's getting some really good guests on his show. Just recently, Vivek Ramaswamy, who I did a video about last week, he was on the podcast and he was great. So if you haven't already checked him out, you should check him out because it's a great podcast. All right, okay. So I got 2 more topics to cover here. We're getting in there. We're at 31 minutes in, so let me pick up the pace a little. It's not like she's I'm gonna have much to say about Kamala Harris. She's kind of a wet noodle. But Kamala Harris is apparently in the news, and they are trying to scrub her clean. So I'm going to read this article. It's funny, and there's a few of them like this. This is the Daily Beast, so again, garbage. Daily Beast is complete trash. But I'll read this because it's funny, because the trash articles are the ones that are talking like this. So it's time to give Kamala Harris her due. The press has taken too long to notice, but the barrier-breaking vice president has been an accomplished leader and advocate in the Biden administration. What? What has she done? But okay, here we go. It appears that it is at long last time to acknowledge the extraordinary and vital role being played by Vice President Kamala Harris on behalf of the Biden administration and the United States. Finally, the narratives in the press that had for too long been colored by the political agenda, misogyny, and racism of critics have begun to change to reflect reality. What? What reality? What are you talking about? God, she's a dumpster fire. That said, there is still an aspect to Harris's performance as vice president that remains underappreciated. The substance of her record as a full partner to the president at the lead on domestic and international issues. That record not only makes her one of the most effective vice presidents in modern U.S. history, it has been part of President Joe Biden's active effort to ensure that no one is better qualified to succeed him as president of the United States. Okay, what the hell are you even talking about there? What is that? So that's basically the equivalent of, okay, so Joe's such an excellent employee. He's at work every day. He's breaking barriers at work. Man, you know what? I saw him. He was at work the other day, just working it a lot. Really good work on Joe. Man, that is one excellent employee. What the fuck did I even just say? I said nothing. He's at work. Cool. So she shows up. She's at the White House. I don't even think she shows up because half the time we don't even see her. Where'd she go? But okay, this is what they're going to do now. They're going to scrub her awful record and try and make it like she's doing something. Okay, so here we go. It's a subject that is especially significant to many voters given President Biden's age, and is one that should be addressed directly. Here it is. That is both because it is our responsibility as voters to assess the issue carefully, and because in doing so, we see the real strengths Harris brings to her role. Okay. Here we go. Let me see. Let's skip that shit here. What is more you can tell about this? You can tell this about face in the press is real. Yeah. Oh, okay. They're actually talking about this about face. And not just the result of some White House press campaign because of the outsized attention Republican presidential candidates have placed on the vice president. As argued in the Boston Globe, a re-energized Harris is living rent-free in the heads of Republicans. GOP candidates from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley have targeted Harris, and Harris has proved very effective in responding to those attacks, a factor that has no doubt played a role in the current reprisal of her. Okay, I'm not gonna read it anymore. This is garbage. I don't know what the heck they're trying to do here. I suspect that maybe they feel like Biden has no shot winning, and they might just put the final nail in Biden's coffin. Just say, okay, well, he's whatever congressional amendment it is. I think it's 25 or something like that that says that if president's unfit, then they can sort of be forced to step down. They might use something like that on him, and then just slide her in and see how she does, and then you know then go from there. Who knows? I don't know what this is about. Anytime you start seeing this kind of thing afoot, I think something's going on. Anyway, so I don't know. Suddenly, this woman who's useless by everybody's account is what, because she's clapping back a little bit on some uh, presidential candidates like Ron DeSantis, apparently, which I don't know. That's anecdotal at best. She's suddenly, going to be the next president, or so good that she should be the next president. This is garbage. So just watch. I'm going to say it here. I'll be first to say it here. You can see a lot more of this in all the mainstream media now, where Harris, 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 and now the Biden train is going to start to go down. So I suspect that that's what they're going to do. They're going to try and just do the quick uh, bait and switch with Biden and Harris. So we'll see. All right. Okay, I'm going to get right into my last one here. This one's funny. I don't know if anybody has heard of these, because I just heard of them. Xenopronouns. Xenopronouns. So here's the description. I'm going to give you a little description, then we're going to watch a video of one of the worst people explaining it. But anyways, it's funny. So xenopronouns are a type of hypothetical neopronoun. Here's another one that cannot be understood by humans and or expressed through human language. Theoretical examples of neopronouns include pronouns that involve concepts that humans do not have words for, pronouns whose meanings cannot be translated into any human language. Oh my God. Pronouns that include sounds that would be impossible for humans to make if spoken. What? Wow. This is dark energy. This is dark matter right here. You just can't prove it, but well, it's there. Pronouns that include movements that would be impossible for humans to do if signed. And pronouns expressed through a form of communication that humans cannot use. Just wow. Just wow. I don't even know. Okay, so I'm not doing a good enough job of explaining this. So this, let's let Jeffrey Marsh explain this a little better for you. I've queued it up at the time where he's going to actually explain this. So here we go.
Xenopronouns. Perhaps one of the most beautiful concepts, one of the most poetic ways to approach this subject. Xenopronouns refers to any pronoun a person has that is unspeakable, that is unworkable in the language of a person.
That makes
So an
sense.
example would be a xenopronoun would be a word. I can't even say it, right? Because that's the point.
Oh, there you
They're
go.
unsayable and sort of effervescent and unknowable, kind of like a person's gender. That's why I love this one. So an example would be, a xenopronoun would contain a set of letters that is a pronunciation that a human being can't pronounce. It's some sound that a human
Good
being
example.
can't pronounce. Or that a xenopronoun contains an image or a concept that it's alluding to that is actually something that language has no way to express.
Okay. Oh my God. What? So good job explaining things. Let me just explain this thing. Okay. So I'm going to explain that I do this podcast, and it's a podcast of podcastiness. So you're gonna absorb yourself into the podcast while you are effervescent in this podcastiness. like, fuck, I gotta have my hat the other way. What is wrong with society? I'm sure this, whatever, I'll say guy, looks like a guy, he's got a beard, um, has a ton of followers, and people are listening to this nonsense. I'm more confused listening to that than I was reading the completely ridiculous definition of it. So, good job. Oh, all right. Well, it's a good laugh at the end, at least. Hey, so I missed that comment there, Joe. You said about the about Kamala being president. Yeah, you should check it out. There's a chick. I don't know what her name is. I've seen her on Instagram a couple times, and she does a wicked impression of Kamala Harris. It's fucking funny, really funny. But she just she'd just be ridiculous. How could you take anybody like that serious? Like she's just as ridiculous in a different way than Joe Biden is. Like Joe Biden when he's just mumbling, when he's just mumbling, it's just as ridiculous as her just cackling out of nowhere. You know, she's I don't know what they're trying to do here. Like I really don't. I think they'll slide her in, and then they'll realize that she polls really low, and then they'll slide somebody in, like a Michelle Obama or somebody who's got a big enough name, or who knows, maybe Hillary Clinton. She might try her crack at it again. I don't know. I don't see her ever winning, but somebody with a big enough name where they can just slide them in, kind of last minute. No need for any debates or any of that kind of stuff, but their name kind of carries enough where people are going to go, yeah, okay. Once they see Trump gets the nomination, that's my guess. It's going to be something like that, some stupid sleight of hand. Unless Trump doesn't get the nomination, which, yeah, I agree with you. I think Gavin Newsom, he's been talked about. And, the fact that he was kind of, you saw him a little bit. It's like, oh, okay, Gavin came out from under that rock, did he? So, and he's a good looking guy. He looked the part, you know what I mean? Like he fits that presidential sort of typical look, I guess, statesman look. So yeah, I think you're right. I think Gavin Newsom's probably the guy. Okay. Anyways, let's wrap it up. We're at 42 minutes. I went a lot longer than I normally do. It's because of you, Joe. I'm going to blame you. And Gizzo got it started with saying hi. Thanks for joining the chat, Joe. Nice to see you. If you watched podcasts or were watching and you didn't join in the chat, jump in, get in there. Sometimes I miss a comment because there's a bit of a delay, I guess, on it. So I might have just passed the topic, and then I see your comment, but I'll get back to it. So I'm not going to ignore you. Anyways, if you did like this, obviously hit the like, subscribe, all that kind of thing. And yeah, catch me on Mondays at 7:00 and catch all these videos. If you missed a part and you don't want to watch the whole podcast, you can catch the videos over the week, from basically Monday to Sunday, or sorry, Tuesday to Sunday, 5:00. I've got them posted there on the site. So again, thanks, Joe. We'll see you guys on the next one. Take it easy.